improve. That's what he's going to do. That's what he's going to become when he grows up. So when he grows up, he's also going to behave in the same way, that if somebody is not abiding by his instructions, so he's also going to beat up that person, because for him this is normal. For him this is something which becomes a part of his personality. He does not feel that there is something wrong in it. On the other hand, let's say there is a person who is also a child of a criminal, and he has not stayed in that same house. Since his beginning of his life, he's been sent to boarding school or wherever abroad for studies, and he's not been exposed to any kind of such behavior. Let's say he's studying in Harvard or Oxford, right? So he is having, since beginning he was not at home. He would just come for a month in a year or 2 years or 5 years, and then parents would take care to, lead a very sober life, not indulge in their usual activities, right? At that time, the kind of social interactions that a person would have would be with his peer groups, with his teachers, with the people who are educated, the people who are in academic field, people who are living in a so-called very social, what do we say, what is the term used? I'm not getting the exact word. Okay, whatever. They're staying in a sub-society where everything is, everything is good and happening as per the socially acceptable norms. Now, when this person, let's say after 25 years of his life, he returns to his father's house, and now he starts seeing the reality that that my father is, indulging in extortion or kidnapping or taking hafta or whatever. Now, since his value system is such, because now since childhood, whatever the people who were in contact with him, the social group which were interacting with him, had inculcated that value system in him, that this is the set norm, this is something which is right, and this is something which should be done. So now when he sees his father doing it, or any family member doing it, he feels that you are doing wrong. So you understand, you appreciate the difference between them. We as individuals grow according to the social conditions and the social norms and social interactions, the kind of atmosphere that we are in. You would see a change in behavior of the child. Let's take a very, very simple example, because this theory also deals a lot with psychology. Now it says, if you look at the behavior of a person who has had supportive parents, and the behavior and outlook towards life of a person who's had abusive, who has been living in an abusive family, very disturbed family conditions, the behavior and the outlook towards life would be different. So that's why we say ideally a child should have both the parents and congenial atmosphere, because otherwise it kind of unintentionally develops some feeling and some personality traits and some value systems are put in the child which is not intentional, but it naturally comes to him because of his social interaction. A person who has lived in a house which is full of ladies will, there are chances that he would grow up to be a very feminist kind of person. Feminist in the sense at least very considerate towards ladies and their rights and concerned about them. However, on the other hand, the person who has lived in a house full of males and there's no female there would not understand a female problem, or vice versa. So that's kind of the social interaction that you've had, the social conditions that you have been, they influence your behavior. Alright, now let me come to, I'll keep on giving more and more examples as and when we move forward. So basically, this is talking about through social interaction, a person learns his values, his attitude, his techniques, and this theory basically talks about how an individual becomes a criminal. Now, if he has been in an atmosphere where crime is a norm, then it becomes more easy for him to adapt to that kind of norm and give justifications for that. Now, let me go to the third point. It says the principal part of the learning of criminal behavior occurs within the intimate personal groups. See, I told you, there are so many social groups that we are exposed to. We as human beings, let's talk about you as LLB students. You are exposed to your family group, your immediate family. You are exposed to your extended family. family group, you're exposed to your town or village or city, society, locality group. You are exposed to your LLB friends group. You're exposed to your uh, graduation, BA, or BSc, whatever you've done, that kind of group. You're exposed to the general society as such. So there are so many social groups which are having an influence on you. Now, the next point is in fact, next to next point is very important. I'll come to that. I'll give the example when that happens. Okay, 4 point says when criminal behavior is learned, the learning includes the technique of committing the crime, which are sometimes very complicated and sometimes simple, and the specific directions of motives, drives, and rationalization and attitude. What this basically means, let's say a child is in company of criminals, then he would learn two things. Firstly, he would learn the techniques of the crime. Let's say I want to be a robber. I don't want to be a robber. It's like exposed to, I'm living with a set of people, or I have a group of friends who are, off and on they are indulging in activities of, let's say, they want to lead a lavish lifestyle. They don't have money for that. So they have been stealing cars. So I am also, I'm not actually stealing cars per se right now, but I am, class is with me, right? Class?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So for example, okay, good. So let's say I am with a group of individuals, and those individuals are involved in car stealing. I know about it. I'm not as such involved right now, but since I am with this group and they give a justification that it's so cool to steal cars, I just go one night. It's a 10-minute thing. I know the technique how to break that lock, and after breaking that lock, I steal the car, give it to the dealer or whatever is the person concerned. He gives me 50,000 rupees. So it's such quick money. It's so cool. So I will also start developing that feeling that yes, it's so cool. I mean, just 10 minutes of job and you get 50,000 rupees, and you can buy a watch that you want to buy, you buy an iPhone or whatever you want to buy. You don't have to plead with your parents to give you an iPhone or whatever, right? So I will also start rationalizing that behavior. So two things happen. First thing is I learn the techniques. So slowly and steadily, I will also become a part of them, and I will also see that, okay, there's no harm in doing that. So first thing is I will look for a rationalization or justification for doing that act. I would say, okay, no, this is not a bad thing to do. You're not harming someone. If I'm stealing a luxury car, they already have so much money. A person who owes an Audi उसको क्या फर्क पड़ेगा अगर 50-60 लाख की कार चली जाएगी तो he's already so rich. So I start looking for justifications for doing my crime. Right? I start looking for reasons, and I start feeling that whatever I'm doing is right. It's nothing wrong in it. अगर मेरे पेरेंट्स मुझे आईफोन खरीदने के पैसे नहीं दे रहे और मुझे तो आईफोन चाहिए क्योंकि मेरे सारे फ्रेंड्स के पास है. So what do? I am with a company of people who are stealing cars and buying iPhones or luxury watches, whatever they want to buy. So I will start, first of all, I'll give justification. Second, I also learn techniques from them. Technique is not something which comes naturally to me. So criminal activity is not something which is inborn, it is something which is acquired. So I am learning my behavior, I am also learning the techniques from them. I do not know how to break the lock. My thief friends are going to teach me how to break a lock, how to settle that wiring so that the siren, the automatic alarm doesn't start buzzing. So this is what they are going to teach me, right? Now, the next point it says, the specific directions of motives and drives is learned from definitions of legal codes as favorable to unfavorable. Now, this is a very, very interesting point. Now, what it basically says is, now this point basically tells you that whenever a person is in a situation or whenever a person has to do certain things, he would have pros and cons. You would have seen, and it always happens with us also, like when we look at TV and movies, it's a very pictographic illustration that they do. There is an angel and a devil. Angel will say, don't do it. Devil will say, do it. So these are basically pros and cons or plus or minus for doing that act. So let's say, I'm just giving you an illustration. Let's talk about What? Okay, let's stick to that car example. Let's say you think about stealing a car. Okay. Now you know what can go against you. You know against it, first of all, you can be caught. If you're caught, you will go to jail. Secondly, your parents will be so hurt to know that the child has turned into a thief. Then your parents will be ridiculed by the society, and you would be ridiculed to their society, and you will feel ashamed and all that. These are the negatives of stealing a car. Now, the positive of stealing a car, what are they? Positives are that you would get quick money. Let's say your girlfriend's or boyfriend's birthday is coming and you want to give her expensive gift. So you want money for that, so it's going to become very handy there. Right? And not everybody gets caught. कितनी सारी चोरी होती है, सबके सब थोड़ी पकड़े जाते हैं. तो कुछ ही केस में पकड़े जाते हैं, जरूरी मैं ही पकड़ा जाऊं. So that's also one method of thinking. कि हो सकता है मैं पकड़ा ही ना जाऊं, हो सकता है मुझे बहुत अच्छे और बहुत सारे चांसेस हैं, 1000 में से एक चांसेस है कि मैं पकड़ा जाऊं या पकड़ी जाऊं. तो फिर this is also one justification. So this everyone does when they're doing any act. This is something which goes on in everybody's mind. Now, how would a person take decision to do a thing or not to do a thing? See, this will be decided by his social interaction. This will be decided by what is his value system over the years that he has grown up. What are the kind of people that he has interacted with? What is the kind of environment that he has been? And this environment has basically shaped his value system, shaped his outlook towards things, right? So the social group which has more influence on you. Let's say the child is a school-going child who is thinking about stealing a car or not stealing a car, and then he is exposed to a group, let's say teachers also, who always teach good values, you should not do this. Parents are also teaching you should not do it. But on the other hand, there is another social group with which he has a close relation, and that is his group of friends. And this group of friends has a huge influence on him. I'm taking you back. I don't know if it's the right time to give that illustration or not, but let's go to the example of Mahabharata. When we go to the illustration of Mahabharata, some people have this view that Duryodhan was not a bad person, but he was in a bad company. He had a bad influence. He had the influence of whom? Kiska influence tha? Shakuni Mama, right? So he was an influence of Shakuni Mama, and that is what made Duryodhan do bad things that he did. By and large, he was not a bad person. So Shakuni Mama was the social group which was having the maximum influence on it. So if you do an act or you do not do an act, it all depends on what is the social group which is exerting maximum influence on you. Those social group, mind you, are mostly intimate groups. But at times it also happens that you would have seen certain directions that comes from communication and broadcasting ministry, that whenever there's a cigarette smoking should not be shown on TVs and movies. Drinking is something which should not be shown, and becoming a gangster or doing criminal acts should not be glorified. Now, why so? Because it has an impact on the psyche of a person. If you're glorifying that, if somebody has been watching movies like Godfather and all that movies since his childhood, he would be influenced by the fact that, oh, crime world is so glorious, it's so attractive, it's so nice. So there's nothing wrong in it, and it's a glorious world, right? So if you are exposed to certain movies or certain serials or certain such things which influence your mind, so they will create an impression on your mind that these things are good. There's nothing harm. If something wrong has been done to you, you have a right to rebel against it. You have a right to take up arms against it. And that's how terrorism. So see, when we talk about terrorism, I'm sure all of you know that children as small as 7 to 8 years are basically trained in these activities. They are trained to firearms, and they are trained to. And when we talk about, I'm see no offense intended, and just for the purpose of explanation, I'm saying that they are taught jihad in a very wrong manner. They're taught that I'm just taking one of illustrations. We have such fundamentalists in every religion, but just for the purpose of illustration, I'm saying that they are taught, and something is imbibed in their mind from the childhood, that look, this particular community is your enemy, and we are supposed to, protect our religion. For that purpose, we have to take up arms, and cause, like, for example, America is our biggest enemy. We need to do that, or India-Pakistan issue. So this thing is so much imbibed in their mind that it becomes a part of their personality, and they cannot rationalize things then. They cannot think beyond that. Something is so much. उनको इतना कन्विंस कर दिया है, इतना ज्यादा कन्विंस कर दिया है कि they cannot think the other way. They've been trained in such a manner that they cannot think beyond that. They cannot feel beyond that. They cannot even imagine a situation other than that what has been tutored. They've been tutored in such a way. So similar things happen, that if you catch them young, you can teach them anything, right? So this is one thing, that the social group that you are with would affect your behavior. Now, another very important point that I would like to tell you is that look, your motivations would work. If you're doing a criminal activity, what are the motivations for doing that activity would also influence whether you would do that activity or not. I'm giving you a very simple example. For example, and a friend of yours goes to a mall and he picks up things without paying. He's basically shoplifting. He starts shoplifting, and he comes out. Right? And you said, why did you shoplift? It's bad. So he tells you that I shoplifted because it would be so funny when the shopkeeper would see his footage, or whenever he would realize that a small child has taken, because there are CCTV cameras, so he would know. So it would be so funny to see his reaction that, I could not even catch a small child. So that's why for fun I've done that. If you are convinced by that argument, that, it's so funny, I will also do that. If you're convinced by that reasoning why he's doing it, there are chances that you would also follow his suit. There are chances that you would also do the same thing. However, if you're not convinced by his motivation for what? Motivation for doing a crime. If you're not convinced by that, then there are mostly chances that you would not do it. So that is what basically means motivations. If you're convinced by that, you would do it. If you're not convinced by the motivations, you would not do it. Okay. Okay. Now, next point, it is there. A person becomes delinquent because of the excess of definition favorable to violation of law over definition unfavorable to violation of law. This point I just now explained, that when a person is doing his act, he would look at the positives and negatives, and if the positives are if there are more points in favor of doing that act rather than not doing that act, so generally he would do that act until and unless there is a strong force which is stopping him from doing that. Now, next point it says is the process of learning criminal behavior is by association with criminals and anti-criminal patterns involve all of the mechanisms that are involved in any other learning. So just like any other learning, the way we learn other things, similar way we learn criminal behavior, and that is precisely the reason. If you look at Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act of 2015, and earlier also we had this Juvenile Justice Act, I think 1999 and even before that. So, this has specific provisions that the children should not be put in jail with adult criminals. And why so? Because we do not want children to be exposed to that kind of company. If they are at a young age, let's say a child has just committed an offense of theft, a simple case of theft, and he is exposed to a company of a person who is a hardcore criminal. So the chances are the moment he comes out of the jail, he will come out as a hardcore criminal. He would have learned all the tricks of the trade, how to do a crime, the techniques of doing the crime, how to escape, and what are the motivations, what are the justifications. So there are more chances that he would be influenced by these kinds of acts, right? So that is why we have, if you look at Juvenile Justice Act, just a moment. Alright class, I'll answer all your questions and I'll read everything. Just give me, just let me complete this topic first. Then I'll answer all the questions and everything. Okay, so I was telling you about in Juvenile Justice Act we have this provision that they would not be kept in jail along with the other criminals, and the reason is very simple. The reason is we do not want them to come out as criminals. So in Juvenile Justice Act we have the provision of observation home, we have the provision of child care institutes, and other place of safety where a child who's a delinquent. Delinquent basically means a child who has committed a crime, right? Who is accused of committing a crime. So such children would be kept in a separate place. You must have, when you go to North Campus, if you go towards Mukherjee Nagar, there is a place which is called as Seva Kutir. Have you seen that?
Yes, ma'am.
So Seva Kutir. So next time when you go towards Mukherjee Nagar, when you go towards Batra, from the metro station, GTB Nagar metro station, from that when you start walking towards Batra Cinema, you would see in between there is a bus depot से शायद थोड़ा सा आगे जाके या bus depot से पीछे I think bus depot के आसपास there is a place which is Seva Kutir. Now that is a juvenile justice board sits there. And this is basically a house, it houses the children who have committed certain offences. So these children are kept at a separate place. They are not put in jail, and they are kept as a separate place. And there are also the children who are accused of committing a little more serious offences are kept separate from the children who are accused of committing very petty offence. For example, the child who has committed murder is kept different from a child who has committed a theft. Okay? So, and on the age-wise also they are kept different. So that there is no much exposure to criminal mindset and criminal kind of way of life. And they don't learn these techniques and they don't become criminal in their life. So that is the reason we have this concept of separate jails and all that. Right? Okay, the next point is while the criminal behavior is an expression of general needs and values, it is not explained by those needs and values, since non-criminal behavior is an expression of the same needs and values. So this point basically means that we are shaped by the needs and values that we have. Now another very important point in this is, see, our behavior, our criminal behavior, whether we become a criminal or not, is basically dependent on how much are we exposed to that social group which is influencing us to become a criminal, and at what stage of our life are we being exposed to it. So these 2 points are very, very important. कितना exposure है और किस stage of life पे exposure है. Now I'll give 2 illustrations of that. See, first of all, how much exposure. Now how much exposure basically deals with the point that आप उनके साथ कितनी देर रहते हैं. If it is just one-off interaction, where you're just meeting them off and on and not a very regular kind of just once in a year. So we do not expect that group to have a great influence on you. On the other hand, if the meeting time is too much, it's in your friend circle or बिल्कुल intimate family members are there involved. So in that case, the exposure is much more. Second point that we have is regarding the fact that at what stage of your life are you being exposed to them? In the sense that if you are a child, now there are more chances that you would be influenced by other people more than you become an adult. When you're adult, you have developed a way of thinking, understanding, and value system. But when you're a child, you're still developing your value system. I'm sure you would appreciate and understand this fact and also realize that कुछ जगह पे कुछ चीज नॉर्मल होती है जो दूसरी जगह पे नहीं होती है. Like if you go towards Orissa and parts of West Bengal, you would see that selling of the daughters for money is something which is very normal, and it is not a taboo in the society because there is so much poverty. There is also in parts of Jharkhand. See, they have a concept of bride price. Bride price basically means you pay money for getting a bride. So these kind of things are very normal there because of the circumstances which is prevailing for the person belonging to that area, exposed to that circumstances. Bride price or paying price or selling their daughters is not something which is immoral act or something which is really bad and should not be done, because this is a part of the norm of the society that he's staying in. However, something who is not exposed to such social behavior would think, oh, it's the biggest sin, it is such an immoral act, you cannot do it, how can you sell your daughter? So that's how our value systems are shaped according to the society we belong to. Now also, let's take an example. That was one of the illustrations that at what stage of life you're exposed to that. Second thing is regarding I'll first give you an example of your childhood, and second example would be even if you're an adult. Let's say this is COVID times, right? And I'm sure all of you must have read a lot of reports which suggest that COVID times is going to be followed by a time of total anarchy and total unlawfulness, where there's going to be so many people have already lost their jobs, lost their source of income. And there are more in next 6 months. A lot of people are going to suffer losses in their business, and they're going to also lose their jobs. So since there's going to be so much scarcity in society, the crime rate is going to increase many fold, right? So it also depends on the circumstances, in the sense that let's say I am a businessman who is struggling with that business. The stage of life that I am in is that I am struggling with my business and I do not want to extra taxes to the government. Okay, one more thing. One important point that you must remember is, though this theory was basically devised by, doing a study on children and then thieves and all that, but otherwise this is a theory which is not limited only to juveniles and juvenile delinquents, or to the poor people, because they are poor, they're exposed to such situations, and so they become, that's how they do indulge in criminal acts. This is a theory which equally applies to socio-economic offences and to white-collar crimes also. Let's say I am a businessman, and अच्छा इसका मैं बहुत अच्छी आपको एक story बताती हूँ. I just remembered it. I was once watching an interview by Anil Kapoor. Anil Kapoor, he's a hero, he's an actor. है ना?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, somebody's mic is on because my voice is echoing. Okay. So he was giving an interview. He said, I start realizing the value of money after meeting Akshay Kumar. What happened is that I was invited to a wedding, and since the person was insisting a lot that I should come to a wedding and all that, I went there, and there I met Akshay and other actors as well. Right? Shah Rukh was there, Akshay was there. So then they said, okay, how much have you charged? So Anil Kapoor said, I could not understand how much have I charged means what? This person was insisting, it's my daughter's wedding, please come. So they started laughing at me, and they said that, अच्छा तू free में आ गया? So that is when Anil Kapoor says, that is when I realized that I've been cheated on, and actors are paid to go to weddings and functions and all that. I left that wedding there, and then I just rushed back home. So basically what I'm saying, this is just one of the illustrations to tell you that the kind of group that we are in, it teaches us a lot of things. let's take for example, I'm into a certain business, and I'm a very honest businessman, woman, whatever. I pay my taxes on time. I do not do any kind of manipulations in my records, and so I have to pay huge taxes. Now I come into the company of other groups of businessmen and through by interacting with them, I come to know, oh, you are a fool, you're paying full taxes. This is how you should manipulate your accounts. This is how you should manipulate your balance sheet and whatever the company's turnover and all that. And that's how you can save at least 5 lakh rupees for taxes. So when I get exposed to that group, I get those ideas, and when I get exposed to those ideas, there are chances if let's say I'm getting very influenced by that social group and I'm interacting with them too much. So I would also get ideas that, oh, I can also do that. Then there are chances that I will also start doing the tax evasion by making false accounts and all that. So it all depends on your surroundings, the social group which are influencing your behavior and influencing your way. Okay, let me see if I've covered all the points, and then I'll take your questions. Just give me a moment. Alright, just the criticism part, just 5 more minutes, and then I'll take all your questions. Just give me the criticism part. Okay. Okay, now this theory has been criticized, and the reason why this theory has been criticized is because it says you are putting everything on the social surroundings of a person or social interactions. That person, how he becomes criminal is by learning through his social interaction. But what about a person's personality, his individuality? See, this theory does not take into account the personality traits of a person that might affect a person's susceptibility to these environments. For example, there are some people who are violent by nature. There are some people who get angry very easily by nature. Some people, आप कहते हैं ये तो बहुत चालाक है. So some people are street smart. The situations also make them street smart, but some people have certain personality traits also. And it is also a scientific study that criminal behavior is something which is influenced by hereditary traits also. You have certain genes which are violent genes. You have certain genes which make you more attract you more towards criminal behavior also. So this is also a part of science and psychological study that has been done, that this theory totally negates that part of a person's personality. Also, secondly, it has been criticized on the ground that it becomes very difficult to calculate these things that he's saying. If you say that the social behavior of a person is influenced by whether a person is indulging in a criminal act or not is influenced by his social interaction, now the question comes, how will you measure that? You have studied about empirical studies and how the studies are done. When you're collecting data and analyzing it, this is called as empirical studies, right? It's a very scientific way of study. So other psychologists and other sociologists have criticized this theory on the point that how do you measure the quantum of influence? You're saying there are so many social groups which are exerting influence on a person, and that is why he's doing a crime. That is why he's becoming a criminal. But how do you measure the quantum of influence that each group is having? Right? So there are no set standards for measuring such things. Fine? So that's all from my side. Now I'll take your questions. Let me read if there are certain questions. Okay, one person is asking, sometimes it is opposite also, but yeah. Pratishtha, you can ask your question. One cannot oppose it, not always according to the social norm group. It is subjected to the Manjeet. Manjeet Kumar. Students, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We can hear
Okay, so
you.
Manjeet is not responding because Manjeet has given that. Okay.
Yes.
See, Manjeet has
Yes,
written
yes,
a point. Okay, so Manjeet, you've written bride price is not selling of bride; it is a custom in Adivasi. I agree. In a very generic sense, I referred to them as same. But what I meant to say was regarding the selling of girls. That was the example I was giving. And bride price is not selling. A clarification from my side. Bride price, in fact, I think कहाँ पे मिथुन होते हैं? Mithun is the animal that they have. किस जगह पे होते हैं? मुझे याद नहीं आ रहा. बताइए मुझे. I'm sure you know about मिथुन. और वहाँ पे कुछ I think in somewhere in northeast they have, and they have this custom that for each girl, the more prettier she is, the more mithuns you have to give to the girl's father to get her married. So this is a custom, yes, but what I was referring to in my thing is selling of girls, right? Okay. Now I am not able to understand Pratishta's question. If she's there, she can ask. And if there's anyone who wants to ask or say something, comment on it. Any? Yes, Arunachal में भी होते हैं, नेपाल में भी होते हैं. Yes. Okay. See, theory part, there is no one book which I've referred. I've read several articles on it. So just you can, in case you do not have a book, you can go to internet and just type Sutherland's theory, and so many articles will come. So there's no one point of reference that I can give you. I've read several of them, and that's how it came. Okay, Sugandha, you have given a link for what? Okay, a link for differential association theory. Okay. So just read on it. You can read it on net for the time being, because there's no one book which I can point out. And also I had to share the list of books with you. So what I'll do it, I'll post it on your class group. Okay? The list of group that has been prescribed, I will post it on your class group. Reading list I will provide on the class group part. Okay, anyone else wants to say something or share something or question or something?
Ma'am, may I?
No? Sure. Please go ahead.
Hello, ma'am. Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am. So
please,
yesterday we were discussing the reasons for emergence of socio-economic offences, and we discussed this very first point, that after the Second World War, there was a change in the world economy and US became a superpower replacing Britain. And this led to, I just wanted to ask, how does this lead to socio-economic offences?
See, it led to, then I substantiated with war economy. After Second World War, there was an emergence of war economy. That we have certain countries, certain big, hugely, very influential people who are involved in manufacturing of these weapons and missiles. Now you need a weapon and missiles to be bought. What are you going to do by just making them? We buy so many weapons from Russia, right? So we buy from Italy, from every country we are buying weapons. So why there is a need to buy the weapons? There is a need to buy weapons because there is unrest, there is a threat of war. So that is why we buy weapons. So socioeconomic offenses began because of the advancement in the weapon industry. More the weapons are being produced, these are very influential influential and powerful people. They want more and more unrest in the society. They want more and more crimes to happen. They want more and more tensions and wars to happen so that their economy can thrive. More the wars, more the requirement of weapons, more their production, more is the profit that they make. More is terrorism. Terrorists को भी weapons चाहिए, government को भी weapons चाहिए terrorists से निपटने के लिए. So that is how after Second World War it was more of a warfare kind of economy, war economy. Right, Alankita?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, ma'am. Yes.
May I ask a question that I have like this concept. Like the early liberal philosopher John Locke had given a concept of tabula rasa. That is the slate theory.
Mukul, your voice is cracking. If you could just change or write it in the chat box, I'll read, or you can just try again.
Am I direct right now?
Fine. Tell me.
Early liberal philosopher John Locke had given a theory of tabula rasa, that is a blank slate theory, in which he said that education can improve so many problems, so many prejudices that we have. So, ma'am, how much do you agree with him that education can improve to solve this prejudice and beliefs which are discriminatory, like racism, sexism, gender biases, and all?
See, I totally agree with this theory that education can definitely improve a lot of things. Basically, what education does is, education basically broadens our horizon. It exposes us to the different set of thoughts. It exposes us to the different value system that we may not be aware of as of right now. So education definitely is very important for getting rid of the social evils and the social norms and the things which are existing, the crime rate also. Because somebody is educated. See, let's take it in both sense. There are two angles to it. First angle is, if the person is educated, he would most likely get a job. If he would get a job, he would be busy doing his job and not indulge in these kind of social crimes, right? So let's look at the position in Kashmir. If you look at in Kashmir, the schools and colleges are shut in Kashmir for almost entire year. It's like 3-4 months in a year the schools and colleges open. So these are the people, the stone pelters that you see on the streets of Kashmir. Now what are they? On Srinagar ki streets pe jo forces pe stone fenkte hain, who are they? They are basically the people who are jobless, the youth who has nothing to do, and they are paid 100 rupees whatever is it. That's a controversial matter at all कि वो पैसे देके करते हैं या नहीं करते, वो अलग बात है. लेकिन फिर भी they have nothing to do, so they indulge in these anti-social activities. If you're educated and also you have enough jobs, in that case you do not have time for these kind of activities. Second thing is, if you're educated, you would also know, you would be able in a better position to distinguish right from wrong. So you would know what you're doing is right, you would know what you're doing is wrong, at least in a theoretical sense. But at the same time, education is not the only thing which can change things. Education is very, very important. It is one of the things which can help to change situations, but education alone cannot change it. Right?
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, I have a question. It's related with the example that you just gave us before, the stealing of the cars. So in that case, we know that with the interactions and also the technique that they learn, they steal the car and they became a criminal. So what about, and then later on they sell the cars. And what about the people who bought the cars, how would you justify for that?
That's what I'm saying. If they are, if they are convinced by the fact that, look, I am stealing an Audi. Now, Audi is something which comes not less than 60 lakhs, 70 lakhs, right? So if a person can afford this much, your justification for doing the crime would be that, look, this person is rich enough. If he's having one Audi, aisa to nahi hoga apna sab kuch, he's going to sell his entire property, life saving and buy one Audi. Generally, that doesn't happen. A person who would keep Audi would be someone who's pretty rich and he has more cars also. So if I take one of the things from his, he has a huge bank balance, he has a huge property. So if I take just one thing out of it, it won't make much difference to him. Or for example, I give you another example. Let's say you go to a shop and you do a burglary. You steal. Let me take the example of a jewelry shop. If you go to a jewelry shop and you are stealing all the jewelry from the shop, your justification is this shop is insured. So even if I steal the entire gold or the jewelry from that shop, the insurance company would know insurance company is going to compensate this person. So उसका कुछ बिगड़ेगा नहीं और मुझे फायदा हो जाएगा. He is not going to lose anything and I'm going to gain a lot of things. I'm going to gain a lot of money. So that could be one of the justification that he works on. Right? Thank you. Any other question, class? All right then. Thank you so much, all multi attendants, and thank you so much. See you in next class. Bye bye.